Good afternoon, Matthew Hooper. Thanks for joining us here at Yellow Shelf.
It's a pleasure to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Super excited to share your debut novel, your latest, or your book that's about to be launched, The Cold Season. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming, but at the same time, it's been a pleasure to write it. So I've
Yeah.
enjoyed the process.
Well, exciting times, and I know it's officially out next week or in the next
Yes.
couple of weeks. Matthew, what does the Yellow Shelf audience need to know about your new book? Please tell us.
Well, a cold season essentially is about grief and loss, but it's also about resilience and renewal. It's about the way Beth, who's the 14-year-old protagonist, narrates the story. She's got a very distinctive voice and her own idiom. And what this does is it distances herself a little bit from the family that she's in. And this distance gets her into trouble at times and also empowers her to do the things that she wants to do. From this space, she sort of finds agency and ultimately takes matters into her own hands. I think if the book was narrated by someone else in the book, like Owens, the father character, or Grace, the mother character, I don't think that Beth would have found the path that she finds when she finds it as the narrator. So the book in many ways is about her voice. She lives in this harsh environment and manages to survive really by mythologizing her own story. It's called a cold season because I wanted to indicate that sometimes difficult situations can improve with the passing of time. And this has a lot to do with the way that Beth narrates and what she talks about, and also the way she speaks. I also wanted to refer to a freak winter, which I see as one of the characters in the book. So the winter itself is one of the antagonists to Beth and her family. Initially, before I started writing about Beth, I was writing about her father, Owens, and his experiences during a harsh winter. And I wanted to place him somewhere remote and high and cold. And this was the Kosciuszko Mountains, an often hostile environment. And as I said, I wanted the winter to be a character, an antagonist to Owens. And I wrote a lot about him. I wrote about 65,000 words. Then what happened as I was writing him, Beth just appeared on the page and her voice was immediately compelling to me. And it was almost like she was demanding to be heard. So what I did is I went and I wrote more about her. I wrote 30,000 words in her voice. And her narrating was essentially a novella. And at that point, what I did is I showed that novella to Bob Sessions. He said he liked it and suggested, though, that I write another 30,000 words in Beth's voice and create a novel rather than a novella. And I think this was a terrific suggestion, and I really appreciate that suggestion from him. I sat down and I wrote, and just to outline my process a little bit, when I'm writing, I write 500 words a day every day, and I did this for 60 days or more
Wow.
with a cold season. And this is my process. It's not a new process. A lot of writers work this way, but it certainly worked for me. And then after I'd done that, I contacted a woman called Nadine Davidoff, who's a freelance editor. I'd worked with her before, and then I knew that we worked well together. And we did structural edits, and that gave birth to A Cold Season as a short novel about 60,000 words. Then what I did is I showed the novel, or part of the novel, an extract of the novel, to Sarah Mackenzie in one of Anthony Yark's masterclasses. And following her feedback, I reworked the manuscript and it went through about 30 drafts. And at this stage, I showed it to Anthony and he suggested that I contact Barry Scott from Transit Lounge Publishing. Barry was very supportive, and A Cold Season was then edited by Kate Goldsworthy. And this process with Barry and Kate was a very rewarding one for me. I felt like the vision of the work was kept intact, even though there were some changes. And by sort of telling this story about how it occurred,
Mm.
part of what I'm trying to indicate is that I think, in my experience, almost all novels are a collaboration between a number of people, not just the author. There are many people involved, and certainly this was the case with A Cold Season. So there are lots of people I'd like to thank. I won't do that now because the list is too long, but
Yeah,
I'll certainly do that at the launch.
yeah.
Um, so
It's
yeah,
fascinating.
that's a little bit about the journey of a cold
Yeah.
season and
And
how it
look,
comes
I mean,
about.
I think a lot of people don't know how much goes into it and how, like you said, how much collaboration really does need to happen before the final product comes out.
Exactly. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people involved. I mean, including editors and cover designers, and the book needs to be typeset, and
Yeah.
so there's so many people involved.
Yeah.
And also, even before it got to the publisher, as you saw when I was talking about all those other people, there's so many people involved in this process, or there have been.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a bit more about that later. But
Yeah.
that's essentially the journey that the book's gone through.
Fabulous. And look, what I know we spoke earlier. You said we kind of laughed that yeah, there's other novels to be written in your drawer. So,
There are, yeah.
you have attempted to go on this journey. What inspired you to write this one? What do you want to share about the background, or even what do we need to know about you, Matthew?
Well, A Cold Season was inspired really by Beth's voice. That inspired me to write, and also it was the cold. I really wanted to set a novel in the cold. Um, but before A Cold Season, I made writing a priority when I did a MA in creative writing at RMIT. I met some amazing teachers and some amazing writers there, and it was very inspiring to do that course. Then some years later, I did an associate degree in professional writing and editing, also at RMIT. And again, I worked with some amazing teachers and writers there. And it was like doing those courses gave me permission to write, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm certainly not suggesting that every writer has to do formal study, but it just worked for me. Um, in professional writing and editing, I workshopped many extracts and got some great feedback from teachers and students. And this um, was also something that, inspired me to write, was this camaraderie with other writers and teachers. And most of the teachers were also writers. So
yeah.
a very productive environment. Um, some of this was during the COVID pandemic. And so the classes were online, but that was okay because we could exchange writing via email and other sources and give each other feedback. Another thing I probably should mention is that before I became a painter, a writer, I was a painter and exhibiting in Melbourne, but I was always writing behind the scenes. So the
Mhm.
painting would inform the writing, and then the writing in turn would inform the painting. And I think this has influenced me and inspired me to write in a very visual way. I
Sure.
try to see in my mind's eye the places and the people I'm writing about. And I'd probably say that after the MA at RMIT and the professional writing and editing course, and even before that, I've always been compelled to write. I've done it since I was a little kid, and it feels just like what I'm supposed to do. I always have a writing project on the go. And now that A Cold Season's finished, I'm going to be working with Owens's story, Beth's father's story. And this will be a prequel to A Cold Season.
Wow.
As I mentioned earlier, I've done 65,000 words of this project. It needs structural editing and line editing, but yeah, it's off to a good start.
Excellent. Well, promise me you'll come back and talk to us about any future novels.
I
That'd be
certainly
great to
will.
share with
So,
Yellow Shelf. And Matthew, what's the best way to connect with you if we're curious about this book? It's about to be launched. Where do we get it? Where is our curiosity at with the book?
well, initially, I think I'd direct people to Transitland Publishing, their website. You'll find that just with a Google search, they come up straight away. Um, I have a very rudimentary LinkedIn account, which people can contact me on. But initially, the Transit
Yeah.
Lounge website is probably the best place to connect with the book. Yeah.
No worries. Well, I'll put that in the show notes to make it really easy for people just to connect with your
Okay.
particular page there at Transit Lounge. Matthew, good luck with the next few weeks of the
Thank you, Joe.
launch.
Yeah.
Probably the many interviews you're about to start doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to hold you to any future books. Please come back and share with Yellow Shelf.
I certainly would love to do that.
Please do. Take care. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, Joe. Bye.